Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express. This morning we're focusing on the hottest topic when it comes to current affairs in the country. When you take a look at the front pages of the dailies, the Kenya-Somalia maritime dispute is taking center stage. And of course, we have had all the reactions from the heads of state. And of course, Kenya's president is going to give a comprehensive report on that and statement on that later on when he's back into the country. And we're having our experts here in studio just react to it. With me here today is Dr. Exen Iraki, who is an economist. We also have Sakwa Bunyasi, who is the Nambale Member of Parliament, as well as senior economist. We also have Professor Alfred Omenya, a governance expert. Now, we're on to your comment, Professor Omenya. What's your reaction to that? And when you look at one of the dailies, we're told that he was flanked by, officials from the Ministry of Defense, of course, passing a message on the stance Kenya is taking on this one.
Yes, I think the tone of of our conversation has been very, very clear that this is a matter that needs to be solved diplomatically and politically. Incidentally, that has been the way historical boundary issues have been dealt with.
Out, yeah.
They've been dealt with not as a technical issues, but actually as political issues, and eventually once the differing entities or states agree, then those can actually become binding. And ICJ, even in the rulings, of course, still insisted on that an amicable solution between Somali and Kenya is a way to go. And of course, political chest thumping is not the way to go. We know that. At the point, if you look at Somali's issue and his boundaries and his peoples and all that from the last 100 years and so on, there've been political interest and political nuances from the Italians, from the British. How did the Somalis end up in Kenya and Eritrea and Ethiopia? Yet they're a big country where they could have easily just extended those boundaries and so on. Yeah, of course, there are quite a number of nuances about where we were. Of course, the Somali separatists in Kenya, the shift,
yes.
What drove that and how did that end and so on. So of course, as good students of history, we must learn that actually anything that escalates this into fights, into wars and all those sort of things basically achieves nothing.
Right.
Normally you'll end up with fickle empires. Not just here, but we saw that with the Russian empires, we saw that with the Chinese empires.
Yes.
Where when you have the muscle, you expand your empire and it stands. And then of course when your other opponents become stronger, then you are forced to shrink.
Yeah.
and you could even be obliterated.
Yes.
And that's why we're saying it's a sensitive matter, and Kenya and Somali must find avenues outside of the court.
Okay, now as long as we are drawing parallels from history, might as well draw parallels from situations that are similar to this one. Tell us, Professor Omenya, what you make of our prospects in resolving this issue, given what's happening in the South China Sea. We all know it's quite similar to what's happening here in Kenya. Do you think there's an end in sight?
It is interesting that you're bringing in the South China Sea, and it's also very interesting to see the positions that have been taken, particularly by the Chinese against all these different countries that are fighting
Yes.
for internal autonomy. And you see that the same pattern that China feels they're strong and they cannot be bulldozed into anything, and they're strong both militarily and economically. And in fact, actually interfering with democracy in those countries by putting the puppet governments, in all those areas and their laws and governing from Beijing. I think, of course, that'll be quite unfortunate in this in our case, because you see our parallel is that. If you had enough resources, then we'll put a puppet government in in Mogadishu, and then support Somaliland and with their secessionist, things and so on.
Yeah.
And yes, we could create a lot of issues and challenges there. But like what I was saying, what would be quite interesting really is actually how to co-govern a resource-rich area that is in dispute.
Yes.
And And those models, those models can be explored. They're experts working on them. Where we can say, fine, I mean, we have not defined the border yet, and that's a long-term issue that we're going to look at carefully, technically, and politically in every way. But on the other hand, this is actually a territory that needs that will still need governing. I mean, for example, if say some Russians or Chinese or whoever it is are fishing in that area or are doing explorations and so on, who is responsible from a governance perspective? Is it Somali? Is it Kenya? Is it none of them? Is it both of them? And so on. Yes, so those are practical issues of governance that the two countries must look at, especially given that Somalia will always be our neighbor anyway.
Yes.
They're not likely to move with their land anywhere.
Yeah, or into the sea.
So we have to say that, yes, I mean, we need to deal with this issue.
Right.
Even though we may not be able to find the border solution now. But let's put mechanisms. I mean, a smaller issue is like Migingo in Lake Victoria. Well, I mean, it's also a border dispute. But Kenya and Uganda have somehow found a way, although very, very questionable. But they found a way of presiding over the fish in that area, and the men who fish
that are not even that remain unaware of what we are
Museveni gave the fish their visas.
Yes.
To stay on Kenyan waters.
Okay, let's close the curtains on this one. Hopefully they find an amicable solution to the situation that's ongoing. We all stand to win if cooler heads do prevail. Now, moving on to politics in Kenya now, and ODM leader Raila Odinga is exuding confidence that the 2022 general election will be free and fair if conducted under President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, Odinga, who was meeting youth under the Mount Kenya Youth Forum for the first time, declared confidence in the electoral body, unlike during his previous attempts to run for presidency. Yesterday's meeting being one of the many he has had with stakeholders in his quest to rally them behind his presidential bid. Senior political affairs reporter Jeff Kirui tells us more.
For a man who has constantly been at loggerheads with the electoral body in the quest for free, fair and credible polls, the handshake between himself and President Uhuru Kenyatta seems to be fast changing the narrative. Odinga, for the first time, expressing confidence in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to conduct free and fair polls in the 2022 general election.
These coming elections of 2022, if Uhuru is the president, I can assure you it will be very free and fair. Because Uhuru is as committed to the handshake as I am committed.
The three last elections were marred with allegations of irregularities and even one nullified by Supreme Court in 2017. The former Prime Minister is confident of his triumph in the upcoming polls. Odinga's allies have in the past expressed optimism over Raila presidency, arguing that the handshake would steer the system in their favor.
There is something which we were missing, and that's something which we were missing is called system. Some people are saying system is not important, but system is very important. And now we are with Uhuru Kenyatta, who is holding the system.
And I went to the top of the mountain top, like Martin Luther King said, and I saw the glory land. And I was saying that I, and like Martin Luther King say, I and you people, we shall get the glory land together.
Odinga has been keen on the Mount Kenya voting bloc, hoping to capitalize on the political ceasefire that has catapulted his quest to conquer and pull the Mount Kenya region to his side ahead of the 2022 polls. The results from the IEBC for the first week of mass voter registration indicating a worryingly low turnout. ODM leader Raila Odinga has used the opportunity to rally youth from Mount Kenya to turn up and register as voters, considering that the region has been considered or rather ranked among the bottom 10 counties in the exercise.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Today, he highlighted his goodies to the youth, promising policies for conducive business environment and a youth-inclusive government with at least 4 cabinet slots.
If we are not on the table, we are on the menu. And you know what happens when you're on the menu? You are eaten dry.
We want a purple zebra matrix, where with every woman you have, there is a young woman and then there's another one who is young at heart.
We're talking about serious policy issues that will make you grow, will grow our economy, and will create an enabling environment for you to grow without depending on government, my friend.
And I've been talking about the 4 U's: utu, umoja, usawa, na uzalishaji.
You have proven that you came up with democratic liberation. Now we need an economic liberation for this country. And no other better person than the one whose history has been able to judge him, that he has kept everything else aside and his own personal interests aside for the interests of this country.
Jeff Kirui, KTN News.
All right, thank you, Jeff Kirui, for that update. And the papers do have updates on Raila's stance politically at this moment. In the front page of the Daily Nation, you're told Raila allies cry foul over new voters. MPs accuse Electoral Commission of bias. On the other hand, we're having here a similar report to what Jeff Kirui just gave us, where it says Raila says, win or lose, I will accept. And on page 6, we have more details on that. I'd like your reaction, Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi, on this one. Raila is now in the system. In fact, his brother says he is holding the system. Do you think that will aid in ensuring that things go better for him this time round?
Thank you, Matrix. Implicit in that statement by Honorable Oburu Oginga, speaking on behalf of himself and the family and his brother, I'm sure he always does, is implicit an assumption that the system has been, the outcomes have always been managed by whoever is closest to the system. They haven't been in there, and now that they're in there, they'll now also manage the system in a way that favors them. The word fair should not be used in any shape and form. They say we'll win this thing because now we are controlling it.
Yes.
Which is, if you think about it, is rewarding violence. It is saying if you are strong enough, you can disrupt the system. You will cause negotiation. And if you control the state agencies, then you will win. IBC will be good under that circumstance. I think it's really it's a sad day, and I think we are setting up, in my view, a process which will culminate about election, may go beyond, that will be completely, what's the right word, combative, that will be, will not be cordial at all, could be violent too. Because now think of it, for each of the things you have said, there is a huge chunk of alternative views out there that do not necessarily agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think that ODM is in a good position as a political party for itself, but they should, I think, learn to manage the public outer utterances. They should manage the message so that it doesn't become distorted and exclusive. So I think, for me, I think that these are outbursts now. These are not statements that are managed. I'm sure they can do a lot better than that. So that we see them as, we see the postures, a statesman-type posture, a presidential-type posture, are not a reformed guerrilla kind of thing. You know, that's, you hear those kind of chest thumping, people who feel it's because of our force that we're here. Right. Rather than that they have won the hearts of many. Winning hearts is what we're all about.
Indeed. Now, Dr. Exen Iraqi, I'd like to know your view of this, all this talk of the system and his renewed confidence in the electoral process, that is a sentiment that is opposed to how he has been handling, or his attitudes towards the electoral process. Do you think this is a new dawn where we're having democracy with Kenyan characteristics?
If you remember when the last presidential polls were nullified by the Supreme Court, one of the big issues in that particular court case was about the system. And the court emphasized the importance of process, and they said that the process is as important as the end. And I think that's what the former Prime Minister is alluding to when he says that IBC will conduct fair elections. But I think I'm always fascinated by politicians, not just the one who has just talked, but all politicians. the way they are able to shift goalposts
Yes.
depending on the prevailing circumstances.
Yeah.
So the former Prime Minister, I think he was at the University of Nairobi, brought a few issues that are of concern to me as a Kenyan and as a voter. One of them is, you notice he was saying all those things in reference to Mount Kenya, which has become like a young girl that is very beautiful and everybody wants to marry her.
Yeah.
So it was important he was talking about all those issues in a forum attended by Mount Kenya, which is a very big voting bloc. Now, by talking about elections being free and fair, he's simply telling us that if I win, I'll win honorably, I'll win fairly, so nobody should dispute.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody has contested that. He's just trying to preempt that in case somebody contests that, there's a way out. Number two, he was talking to the youth,
Yes.
telling the youth that, the elections will be free and fair, because that's a very much contested voting bloc.
True.
Mount Kenya and the youth. And that's why he is promising them four cabinet positions.
Yes.
I don't know who is going to lose when the youth take that position.
Yeah.
And he also alludes to the handshake. So I think the former Prime Minister is simply telling us that I'm now in the system, and I should now believe in the system. But as Mheshimiwa put it, you also have to think about the other people who are not in the system.
Yes.
The UDA, the people who have not decided who to vote for. So I think I see this as nothing but brinkmanship as we prepare for 2022.
Yeah, okay.
But I can assure you that between now and 2022, a lot of things can happen.
Of course. Now, Professor Manya, there's that also the talk of the system, and also he says as long as President Uhuru Kenyatta is president.
Yes, and that's right.
What do you make of that?
I will actually be a little bit strong on this one.
Go ahead.
Than my colleagues. I would say, Raila is, I'm a member of the ODM party. I need to declare that up front. So I do belong to a political party. I'm not just neutral. But I think my party leader lets me down every so often. And his brother lets me down daily, not even often, Uhuru Odinga.
Okay.
I think we should actually find a way of gagging him so that he does not keep on spewing those useless things that he does. ODM as a party was a party that was known to fight for governance and to fight for fairness and to fight for justice. It's a party that is associated with the new constitution and so on. And it is sad that from such a party we now hear that Uhuru Kenyatta is the system. We now hear that free and fair elections are guaranteed as long as Uhuru is in power. We hear almost chest-thumping confidence that our leader Raila Odinga is likely to win elections. That is not declared an interest informally, but he will win them, and they'll be free and fair because Uhuru is in power. I find that sort of logic disturbing, and for those of us who are older in the party, it also smacks a challenge and a problem that we've had. The reason why some of us are not running for political office is because we'll be raked out in ODM primaries.
Okay.
Because Raila is a system in ODM, and Uhuru is a system at the national level. And I must say that with those statements that our party leader made, that marked a low for the fight for democracy and for good governance in the Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
We would actually want, in fact, I'll focus on IBC. The reason why we were on the streets last time was because IBC did not perform as far as we're concerned, and that is what our party leader and others made us believe. The reason why we went to court was because of disputes around IBC.
True.
Transmission of votes, counting of votes, and a whole lot of things. The electronic transfers and things like that. Of course, you remember, we are still even waiting for the servers to be open. The servers that we were told were being hosted in France.
Yes.
And suddenly, without any change, with exactly the same individuals who are in there, our party leader tells us that this is the most competent body to run the elections. They have no issue with IBC as an institution. They have no issue with IBC commissioners. And then, of course, yesterday, being an old man, occasionally you forget lies that you told, and you tell us that actually it is because Kenyatta is in power. And his brother tells us because now we are part of the deep state. Very unfortunate statements from Raila Odinga. I think he's losing his struggle credentials rapidly, and maybe I might consider challenging him for the ODM presidential
oh, really?
flag.
Are you in the system? That's the question.
I am the system.
Okay, now let's move on to another story. Members of Parliament have raised concern, and this is tied to what you've just spoke about, Professor Manya, have concerned over the low voter registration turnout as the country gears up for the next year's polls. Reacting to a week one report released by the IBC, the legislators expressed dissatisfaction with the progress so far, many questioning why only a handful of people have listed at the various registration centers countrywide. They also expressed doubt over the IBC's ambitious projections of the expected new numbers. Grace Nganga tells us more.
Low turnout and calls by the IEBC to increase the sensitization of voter registration caught the attention of MPs as the electoral agency entered week 2 of the voter mass registration exercise across the country. The Chebukati-led team was today hard-pressed to explain how they came up with the recent numbers, with MPs showing dissatisfaction on how the projected vote registration was formulated.
It has not come through very well, so that we understand your parameters on arriving in this document that we have.
Because we are finding regions like Rift Valley are having a projection of 3 million, and we know the population. And we thought that this would, it is the areas with the highest population that would have the biggest, higher projection.
The commission was appearing before the Justice, Legal and Affairs Committee, JLAC, to discuss, among others, the report on mass voter registration in readiness for the 2022 general election after the electoral body failed to reach its weekly target of 1.5 million. Only 202,518 were registered as at Sunday.
Registration of voters at constituency level resulted to low uptake, necessitating then the exercise we are doing now, what we're calling enhanced continuous voter registration.
The MPs, however, blamed IEBC for not doing its part in terms of publicity.
But the primary responsibility of doing this, including civic education, is on IEBC. We are talking about a generation of people, 18 years old, who probably their medium of communication has shifted. How is IEBC innovating? How are we reaching this TikTok generation? Can you give us a breakdown on how many infomercials you're putting on FM stations, on TV, on prime time?
I think the issue is not the kids. What we need to address, all of us, is how to smoke out these Kenyans who are not coming out to come and register. This should be the concern that we need to address, all of us.
The commission, which targets to register 6 million new eligible voters before next year, says Samburu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Wajir, West Pokot, Mandera, Nandi, Baringo, Narok, Turkana and Tana River counties recorded the highest percentage of targets. On the other hand, Mombasa, Nairobi, Kirinyaga, Embu, Laikipia, Murang'a, Kitui, Nyandarua, Nyeri and Kiambu recorded the lowest percentages. As of today, the numbers stand at 243,220 new registered voters, as the ranking of the counties have remained the same. Grace Nganga, KTN News, Nairobi.
Right, now the IBC is seemingly struggling to smoke out those apathetic voters. We're going to take a short break. When we come back,